a knot. Oh, yeah, there is. Oh, my gosh, my golly. Yeah.
Beautimus.
Poppy toppy.
Beautimus.
Ooh, got a partial open there. Got it. Need a little fingering.
Do you have a rut report to share?
A rut report? A rut row?
Do you have a rut?
I've heard it's pretty quiet. I haven't had any real activity personally.
Yeah.
I thought it got kind of hot early and it got real quiet real quick.
You've got got some elk hunting coming up though, right?
Yeah, I'm going hunting tomorrow through Monday.
You're getting gone. Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's the end of the season for early in Idaho, and I still hadn't gone yet. And my cousin, as always, is too buried in work and puts it off till the end, and then starts saying he can't go. So I just start going by myself, and that's what it'll likely look like. He's a home builder, and he's buried right now. So.
And his boss is an asshole.
Yeah, and he's his own boss, and he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a hardworking, committed fellow. I appreciate it, respect it. Just screws up my hunting season, and I've contemplated going, like somewhere else in Idaho, taking a trip, that kind of thing, frequently. And what always stops me is like, yeah, but then my cousin can't go. I want to go with my cousin, and then I end up here, hardly ever getting to go with my cousin because he's working. I'll see him in the evenings and whatnot, because he lives close by. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ryan shot a bull the other day. He sent me a picture of it, but I think it's been a pretty decent year, but the vocalness hasn't been huge from what I understand.
Yeah. In our area, it seems to be trending towards later and later in the month, as in September.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it seems, but then maybe it's just always that way, and it's, we hope for more bugles than there actually is.
Yeah, this is true. I think it's just declined, period.
You
should throw a few more pieces on there since you got it rolling.
Yeah, there's some truth to that because there's more predation, and more predation equals less bugles.
Well, yeah, a combination of, I think, realistically less critters and more predators that hunt based off of the sounds that the elk make, right? So being vocal 20 years ago wasn't near as much of a risk as being vocal today is for an elk. Right. So I think you run into that a lot, which when you get into those areas that are mythical and no predators and very little pressure, the elk are way more vocal. So there is this chunk of land when I was hunting with my cousin a couple years ago, and he drew a rifle tag, and there was 400 plus bulls on it and just screaming nonstop. Like you couldn't speak 2 words and not have another bugle go off, right?
Yep.
So when you eliminate what's their best word to put this? When you eliminate their pressures, right? I.e., that was a chunk of private ground that doesn't allow hunting, and they're all hiding on it, right? Well, they don't need to be afraid.
Sanctuary.
It's a sanctuary, right? So you put them back into a sanctuary state, and all of a sudden the vocality changes a lot. So I think that's really got a lot to do with it. Combination between wolves and hunting pressure and lack of critters.
And what makes our area extra challenging is it's so thick. Mm-hmm. So when it gets really thick, people aren't spot and stalking elk in September. That's not. I don't even know if I've heard of one.
Not up here. No.
Yeah.
No, you'll go down south where it's open and can see that. But yeah, you're not. Which honestly, my preferred method. Really, I'd rather be in an environment where I can see them, try to predict where they're going to go, and get in front of them. Mm-hmm. That's my ideal, personally. In most of my style of hunting, that's my preference. But you can't do that up here. It's a jungle.
Yeah,
it's a jungle out there.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to hop kind of right into a discussion about Joe Rogan and Cameron Hanes and Adam Greentree. Cameron just published his podcast from his Utah elk hunt with Rogan and Adam, and I was listening to it while I was working, and they hit a section where they started talking about fixed blades versus expandables and their choices, and Yeah, I just thought it was a great discussion. I thought it was a really fair discussion about pros and cons. And Adam's been a traditional fixed head user for a long time. Cam was a fixed head user for a long time and has recently converted to mechanicals on, I think, probably all of his last couple of years is what he said.
The last 3 years, he said.
Yeah, been all mechanicals.
Yep.
And then Rogan, who's still pretty new to hunting. He's got a couple seasons under his belt, and it sounds like he this year has ran mechanicals as well. So I don't know. I just wanted to expand on that and get kind of your take. Would you?
Well, there's always good and bad with both, right? And
Yeah.
This is where the internet tends to like light itself on fire of fury of we're right, you're right, we're right kind of crap.
Yeah.
The reality of it, in a nutshell, is mechanical broadhead, and we kind of scrubbed through that before we turned that on because I hadn't listened to it yet. I'd listened to the Knock On Archery podcast that had them in it from the camp.
Yeah, I didn't know that. They did another one.
But you sent me that one, and I glanced at it and went, oh yeah, that was the one I listened to. And oh wait a minute, that's not the one I listened to. So I had to go back and listen to the broadhead discussion and the validity of the advantages and disadvantages of both, and they're very, very true. No different than the advantages and disadvantages of a light arrow and a heavy arrow. It's not to say a heavy arrow doesn't have its advantages. It does. It just depends on the application, right?
Yeah.
The mechanical advantage of a broadhead is everything to penetration. So the longer it is without width is the better it's going to penetrate in general. But you can't argue with the statistics of animals hit with a mechanical broadhead are more likely to die. And they pointed it out in their discussion. They said there's been 2 or 3 animals that I shot that I didn't think were good hits, and they went down within 100 yards. And we go back and look at it and go, this really wasn't a good hit. It's just a more devastating device. But they did emphasize heavily, which I know both of those short fellers shoot 90-pound bows. You know, they want the extra energy to make sure that what they have can penetrate. You can't shoot a big cutting diameter broadhead or a big mechanical and then have low poundage. You need the poundage. You need the energy behind it to make it work. Is the reality of it, because it does take more energy to use a mechanical broadhead than it does a fixed blade style broadhead. It does take more energy to push a 3-blade broadhead through something than a 2-blade broadhead. Those are realities, right? And the things that will withhandle like a hard bone break better than anything is a 2.6 mechanical advantage, 2-blade broadhead, elongated, narrow, and long. That's going to break bone better than anything. Compiled with heavy weight. Now, the heavyweight argument is something that I would like to try to dive deeper into and get deeper into the answers of it, which is why I've been conversing with the Ranch Fairy a lot more, because he has that heavy philosophy, and I want to be able to test it more thoroughly. And it's impossible to argue with Ashby's results, right? There's so much of a database of information, all based off of the same thing. 650 grain or heavier, 2.62 mechanical advantage broadhead or more, right? So which is 2.62 long per 1 inch wide, right? That's what they're saying in that. And they kept running into the same thing no matter what they did at 650 grains. Like if you started getting below that, it wouldn't go through really hard bone. Ribs flex, ribs give. Like every time you breathe in and breathe out, your ribs are moving, right? So there's some give there. So that's not the same. That's not the same thing as like a heavy bone. And boy, wouldn't it be phenomenal just to be able to shoot through an animal at whatever angle it was at, no matter what, not care. Which is it's an amazing option if you could figure it out to work.
And you were willing to go with the trade-offs that came with it.
Yeah. But as a Western hunter, you still also got to look at the reality of arrow speed matters, and I don't take that lightly. I really don't. The one thing that gets glanced over a lot in that discussion when you're looking at it from the heavy arrow argument is almost always that it doesn't make that big of a difference in the speed. And I really disagree with that heavily, and as do the majority of your, what's the word, public figure people that have been in archery a long time and hunted a lot. Most of them will argue to you that speed does matter to a degree. It doesn't need to be overwhelmingly fast, but
hunters, friends in the field, those stuck at home doing DIY jobs. If you want to support the podcast, leave it a review, share it with a friend, subscribe wherever you're listening. That stuff helps more than you know. Josh has an archery dealership. It's It's podiumarcher.com. It's got all the archery stuff. It's got all the stuff. And I have a discount code as Tim C. Helps, support what we do and save a few bucks. And also, if you want to get yourself a little bit of a caffeination station, check out Jocko Go and their line of supplements. We have discount code Josh and Tim. I like how I feel. This doesn't have too much caffeine, which I think is really good. I don't know if you've ever gotten jittery from too much caffeine, but I have. So I think this is just about the right blend. And we'll get you right back to the podcast.
The velocity at which your arrow is traveling and the time to target is very relevant. And that's one of the gripes I have against the other side of that is they try to gloss over like that doesn't matter. And that does very much matter. Animals move. They just do. And I can appreciate well, if my animal moves, it really doesn't matter because I'm going to shoot through whatever I hit. But it can move far enough that the vitals aren't there anymore.
And it gives it more time to move.
And that's pretty damn critical.
Or if, say, you had an effective size of a softball or a basketball, but you move that softball or basketball, maybe you don't hit it.
No, that's very true.
And I've always just from, and this has probably come with maturity as well, is when it comes to coaching or sports or just observation in general, if you want really good information, go to the people that are doing it within that segment. So in bow hunting, our segment might be Western game or whitetail. Right. Or if you wanted to be more specific, you could call it elk. Or if you wanted to be more specific, you could call it whitetail deer. But go to the people that are doing it in that segment really well with a lot of experience. The Ashby thing, and I don't ever hear those guys say things that aren't true. The things I hear them say are true. And there might be little things you could maybe pick at or something, but the things they say are true. But that segment is on African big game.
Sure.
Right? And that segment largely details about one thing, penetration.
Yes.
Right? So that's just one
part.
Well,
it's not just penetration, it's bone breaking threshold.
Sure.
And that's actually, I think, the larger argument that they're making.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to what they're saying, is they're emphasizing that getting through the tissue is not hard, right? The tissue's not what's requiring the energy. Mm-hmm. It's the hard objects, the bone breaking threshold. So they're really, from my belief of what I've heard and understood from them, is that's what the argument that they're making is that it's a bone breaking threshold and you're going to hit bone and it's relevant and it's important. So I get that. If you operate this philosophy from I'm going to hit bone, I need to be able to break bone, then it's relevant, right?
Yeah.
But if you're ideal, which I don't, the animals that we hunt, deer, elk, bear, cougar, stuff like that, the ribs aren't that tough. They're just not.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not a water buffalo.
No, it's not.
Right.
So the argument would then be, well, I'm simply just trying not to hit the main bones. Which is how I was raised and how I was taught, and probably how you were raised and taught the same, or learned throughout that this is the safer place to shoot. And if you want to be able to get through that heavier bone, then you got to shoot something heavy, and you got to shoot the right kind of broadhead. Because none of the broadheads that they're really talking about in that video, whether it be Cam Haines is using a carnivore, unless he changed, but he did say Grim Reaper.
Yep.
And Rogan shooting a T2, but they were talking up the I think it was the Whitetail Fury. It's an Evolution Outdoors broadhead, but that design is actually incredibly intelligent, I think, going forward. And you're starting to see it more. The Sever hybrid's the same thing.
Yep.
You put a blade in the front that's not super wide but very sharp, so you're getting a good sharp cutting surface, and then a 2-blade mechanical facing the other direction behind it. Right. I think there's real validity to that idea. I think that would work incredibly well. Personally,
and that's like a sharp plow doing a lot of the cutting, so it's removing the additional force that would have been needed for like a 2-blade to just go into the hair and then cut, right? So it's like plowing a hole for those things to open up behind. Which I really dig that idea too. If I was on their website, I would show you that one broadhead again. I brought it up like a month ago, but it just looked really sweet. Like Evolution Outdoors makes another broadhead that has the chisel point on front and then the fixed behind it. And effectively you get the big...
it's Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing that is the same thing that they showed in there, but with a fixed blade instead of a mechanical blade. And it's the same ferrule, which all those ferrules I believe were made by AAE actually. But they're buddies. They work together a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that design I think is really solid. And you're seeing that a lot. Well, like the Grim Reaper makes one like that, but it's more of a traditional blade size. It's not a small blade size.
Yeah, which I shot through the bear last spring.
I want to say Rage made one like that a while ago that had a sharp tip and mechanical blade behind it. It's not necessarily a new idea. I just think it's an idea that hasn't gotten its full validity of value, to be honest. And the whole Broadhead thing's got me thinking so much. Like my brain's massively focused on it to try to figure out how do you make something that's got a 2.6 mechanical advantage but doesn't weigh 1 million pounds, and might even argue could have a mechanical. Like there's got to be a way to functionally make that work, and I've got a bunch of different design ideas in my head personally that are just like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about that? And it goes back to a
material engineer would be really valuable in that conversation, because the material is the weight and the strength and the cost.
Sure.
Right. The ability to work with material. And I don't know, I think probably a few doors have opened up in the last 5 years because people are willing to spend more money on a Broadhead than once was prior.
Well, yeah, you start spending $30-$40 a head and selling a lot of them.
Yeah.
Well, then there's clearly a market,
right?
For whatever is the best functioning thing or whatever's the best functioning way. And I just think there's got to be a better way. I don't get me wrong. I love the lethality and the big holes that mechanical broadheads put in things, because it is true. Like when you shoot something with a mechanical, your brain automatically compiles that animal didn't run as far as it should have. Like they die quicker because you're putting a bigger hole in them. There's more blood on the ground.
More wound channel.
Yeah. Right? And it's not arguable. Like it's noticeable in everything that you do with them. So, which is why I've shot mechanicals since. But if your emphasis is on penetration, do not shoot a mechanical broadhead, because it will not penetrate as much.
Yep.
It will not. And the farther away you get from that 2.6 mechanical advantage, the worse it's going to penetrate, because it just takes less force, period. A short squatty blade's harder to cut with than a long elongated blade. It takes more force to push it. It's the same premise. It's not complicated. What's complicated is being able to make something that has the ultimate mechanical advantage that doesn't weigh 1 million tons, because almost all those things weigh 200 to 300 grains. Like there's not stuff out there that's reasonable in weight.
Yeah, they're big chunks of steel.
Yeah, probably because of the people that shoot heavy arrows, so they're not worried about weight.
The crazy thing too is they're not that dissimilar from what a lot of like old school plains natives used. Like they're two blade
or medieval warfare. Yeah. You're trying to shoot through plate steel or chainmail.
Yeah, it's not that different from an artifact that might get found. Like that broadhead design has been really good for that reason for a long time.
Heck yeah.
I would really encourage you to listen to that podcast from Cam and Joe if you haven't. I just thought it was really cool, and the perspective that was interesting was none of them were there because they wanted to be right. They just wanted to learn from each other. And Adam was a great addition to that conversation because he's been a long time two-blade faithful kind of person who's grown up in Australia, shot a lot of water buffalo. A lot of those people come from the same background. They're shooting similar animals, and their arrow types are typically like 500 to 550 grains with, sharp two-point broadheads on the front. And Adam, during that conversation, was like really considering that there's another side that he should consider, because what he saw from Joe and Cam's bow setups, and he shoots a similar setup,
Yeah.
He was kind of astounded by the wound channel, and he saw that those guys had adequate penetration. So if you're getting adequate penetration, what do you want more of?
Right.
More wound channel, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to think about it. If you're getting adequate penetration, what is the thing you want more of? You want more damage, more wound channel.
Sure.
Right? Or maybe you could say something that flies straight, or you could have additional things to that conversation. But assuming flight is okay, if you're getting adequate penetration, then more wound channel.
Which is why you see more and more people shoot mechanicals. You'll go out with a conventional fixed blade broadhead, two blade design, etc., and just go sailing through whatever you shoot at, and the arrow just keeps on going. And it's like, well, geez, I didn't need all that. I could shoot less weight, or I could well, I don't know, maybe you shoot something with a little bit more blade or something a little
Yeah.
wider, which, I mean, you even look at Dan's a good example, right? He was shooting a regular iron will and he went to the wide. Well, because it penetrates enough, right? So, well, but if it penetrates enough, so what are you going to do? More wound channel. Going to the wide, trying to get a bigger wound channel, right? So it's an evolution that's unavoidable. Because as these things get faster, as these things produce more energy, as we perfect the ability to make aeroflight perfect, which is the biggest part of all of this, right? And that's what everyone needs to be cognizant of and aware of. You can't just chuck a broadhead on there and shoot it. You need to make sure your aeroflight's perfect, and we all need to be good at it. And if we're paying attention to it and we're cognizant of it, we're going to be more lethal, regardless of how heavy your arrow is, or what broadhead you put on the front of it, or any variation there of whether it's mechanical or fixed or 400 grains or 800 grains. If your aeroflight isn't good, it won't work. If your aeroflight is perfect, it's very likely to work well, almost regardless of what you use. It's a big part of it. It really is.
Yeah, because you're getting the full energy delivered behind the broadhead,
Yeah.
right?
And it doesn't take that much to deviate it.
It would be interesting to see how much energy loss there really was in something that was out of tune or flying funny. Is it 20%? Is it 30%? Is it more or less? I mean, and obviously that would depend on how far out of tune it was or how silly it was flying.
Well, the beauty of that is once I figure out the right medium to test things in, I can do that.
Yeah, you could do that.
And deliberately take it out of tune, figure out where it's hitting, and shoot it into the medium, and how much worse is it? You know, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Things I'll do when I have time. My time's getting better, though. It really is. It really is.
Yeah. Man, I had something I just wanted to say on that thread about penetration. Oh, I'm a
About
perfect...
penetration. Some people penetrate more than others.
Some people do, some people
Some
don't.
people don't.
Yeah.
And some people are satisfied with that, and some are disappointed.
Yeah, but my progression has paralleled that as well. And this video's on the internet. I shot through a deer 3, 4, 5 years ago with a 2-blade and like a 475 grain arrow or something like that. And in that video, I shot it in slow-mo, so you can really see it, but it goes through the deer. It almost deflects. And part of the internet would argue that it didn't deflect. Part of the internet would argue that it did. I would say that it did deflect some. And it goes in that deer and it comes out at an angle and it hits the tree behind that deer and the arrow just goes flying. I never found that arrow.
Right.
That arrow had so much energy it went through that deer with. And from that point, I've just continued to go with more wound channel. And I haven't hit an animal yet that I was like, I wish I had more penetration, you know?
Right.
And I'm not shooting a crazy long draw length, so that's closer to a middle of the road setup than maybe
nor are you shooting excessive weight.
Yeah, I
shooting
typically
average guy.
28 and a half or 29 and then 70 pounds.
Right. You are average Joe right there. Like
You think the average draw length would be a little shorter?
Nope. 29 is the number one selling draw length in archery.
Okay, cool. Do you think it's the number one fitting draw length for that person in archery?
No, not at all. I think it's probably more likely 28 and a half or 28 is probably realistically more what people should be using.
Yeah.
But 29 is what sells the most.
29 is what sells the most.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, obviously my sample size over that time is like maybe 12 animals or something like that. And I like what Cam said in that podcast as well. He's like, I don't want to hear about a sample size of 1. I want to hear about a large sample size.
Yeah.
Which is like, one thing that makes your perspective really valuable is, you have your own sample size, but then you get to mingle daily with a lot of people who have, a lot of experiences.
A lot of variety. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there's definitely factual to over time. Like if you watch people that are in the sport, and I should say avid in the sport, right? That hunting is their life, hunting is their passion. As they trend, it's rare to see somebody increasing their arrow weight over time. And it's rare to see somebody going away from larger wound channel. It happens. Like once in a while, you'll get a guy who has a bad experience, loses an animal, and then, oh God, right? And I'm buying iron wills.
Then they flip, flip the 180.
They flip the 180 and they go from like an evolution of progression to, I'm going all the way over here, right? But traditionally, it's not a heavy. It's normally a broadhead, which the majority of people that I talk to and the conversations I've had, almost everybody agrees it's mostly the broadhead, right? So the mass thing deliberately is about bone breaking threshold. It's not any more than that. It's just not. It's more all based off of type of broadhead design going forward as far as penetration is concerned. It's not, I don't believe it's so much weight at all.
Well, but it is an influencer, right? I mean,
Sure.
It's an influencer. But what percentage does it influence?
Honestly, I think the penetration weight-wise is just for bone breaking, is not for anything else. I don't think if you're not changing the poundage you're shooting the bow at and you're not changing the arrow spine, you're simply taking, because you can make a 400 grain arrow, or let's say a 450 grain arrow with 200 grains in the front on a 300 spine arrow that weighs 450, and you can make the same thing depending on brand and type. That's 300 spine, 150 in the front, 650 grains, right? Those two things in tissue, I don't believe are going to penetrate any different. I think it's the hard stuff that really makes a difference, or at least the difference is so negligible that it would question whether or not it was important.
Yeah.
Like 5%.
Or and then the width of tissue, right? I mean, if you triple the width of an animal, then that's a lot more tissue.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. And then bone's obviously a huge deal when it comes to that equation, because there's a serious difference between bone and not.
Yeah, and the one thing that you typically don't see very often is somebody shooting a real mechanical advantage broadhead on a lighter arrow. You don't see it very often.
No, because it can't really happen because of weight, right? Even if you have the lightest arrow and you take that broadhead design that you're describing, I mean, you end up getting a lot of weight in that broadhead design.
Yeah, I still think you could get there. I think you could build something that's under 500 grains that would check the boxes.
Yep.
And I would be real curious to see how that holds up against your traditional 657, assuming we have the same broadhead. Mm-hmm. Like everything else being equal, let's shoot the same mechanical advantage broadhead and the same arrow spine behind it.
Yeah.
And the only variable that's changing here is the overall mass of the arrow itself, because that's truly your momentum equation, right? If it's about momentum and it's not about energy, that's what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So I'd love to find something that accurately measures that, and I've had some calls into a couple of different people and some trips I'm going to take to hopefully find an agreed thing that we can all say this is the accurate way to test it and the accurate thing to test it into, etc. So we can have a measurable medium.
That'd be great.
That's part of why I want to do broadhead testing, is I want to be able to do something that shows the consumer the difference between them practically, which, once again, I'll go back to Ranch Fairy and saying, well, lab study is where you begin. It's not where you end. And the proof is in the pudding when you start shooting animals, and you have to shoot it into animals. And I agree, you do. But maybe that lab testing can be such that it really narrows it down really well for you to show you exactly, well, this is,
gets you closer.
Here's where this is coming from. And I want to be able to prove it. And it's not, it does not come from a place of trying to disprove that you don't need 650 grain arrows. I want to know you do, as opposed to, this is what we tested, this is what we did, and this is what we came up with. And it's not arguable. That is the results they came up with. And if you just abide by it, you're going to have that success, right? But is there a way to do it with less weight? That's where my brain goes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't, it's possible. I'm not saying that. I just want to know it's not possible.
Sure. Where do you anchor? Where do you anchor when you're shooting a
handheld?
A handheld.
A handheld, I use the gap in between my forefinger knuckle and my middle finger knuckle, because I'm making a not quite a fist, but around like that. And I ride my jawbone up until it starts to come up, and I stop and it sticks in right there. If I'm using a four-finger trigger or wrist strap style, I'll put that same knuckle on my forefinger, where it bases my hand, not the joints out, for those that can't see this, but like make a fist, and the knuckle that protrudes that you try to hit something with, that's the knuckle I'm talking about. And I place that on the pressure point behind my ear. If you stick your finger underneath your earlobe, behind your ear, and start moving around, you'll find a spot that hurts,
Yeah.
like legitimately hurts to push on. Well, that's where I place my knuckle so I can tell where it is every time. And if I use that correctly and position my head correctly to where my tip of my nose or the left side of my nose touches my bowstring, it gets stuck. It's like it can't move. It can't shift around. It's like this little pocket that your hand naturally sits in. And it's where I found my most accurate anchor points ever. In fact, I would argue that my anchor point with a wrist strap is more accurate than my anchor point with a handheld. Just the device of a handheld works more efficiently. Love to be able to incorporate both because that feeling and that lock-in is so hard to not do well.
Well, I had a young man by the name of Forrest Rogers like 3 years ago, 4 years, five, must have been 6 years ago, something like
Old
that.
Foristo.
Yeah. And I don't know what my problem was we were working on my bow, but Forrest was like, why don't you consider, maybe I wanted to shoot further. He's like, why don't you consider going to between your middle finger and your index finger as a anchor point? And I was like, sure, that makes sense. I'll start doing that today. And that's how I've shot really as an anchor point for the last probably 5 or 6 years. But something in my head the last month was like, or 2 weeks maybe, was like, why don't I go to the anchor point? Basically what you're describing, because what an easy way to get to your anchor point to basically just ride your jawline.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most common anchor point you'd see with professional archers too, is you would see those two fingers can basically ride your jaw to the back of your jaw.
Absolutely.
And I haven't switched yet, but I'm going to. But I want to, hopefully I'm able to get my index to anchor in a similar spot, because right now I think I changed my index. I think my index actually is similar to what you're describing, but I have the same peep height. Like I can interchangeably shoot a 3-finger release and an index with the same exact peep height. And I hope that I can continue that as I change.
That's a little tricky. When I've switched back and forth, I couldn't. I had to move the peep. I just had to. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Somebody sees something.
Which isn't, yeah.
Hey.
Hey.
Knock it off. Chloe?
Yeah.
Or just go let him outside.
Yeah.
I guarantee you she saw a cat.
Oh.
That's what that is. Yeah, but you're going to have to let him out, though. She'll keep barking.
We'll see.
I'll be shocked if she doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the end of the world if I had to change my peep height, but it would be nice to be able to shoot them interchangeably.
Yeah, I mean, it's ideal. It's always good to be able to change from release to release without having to reset up your bow, which is great, but it's not super common for the most level of efficiency. That's just, I could never get them to hit the same.
Yeah.
Feel the same.
How much do you think I'm going to lose on my sight tape by dropping a knuckle?
Oh, bringing your hand up?
Yeah.
So you're going between these two?
Yes.
You might lose
10 yards?
10 yards, I
Yeah.
would think, something like that. Probably.
I'm ready for the conversion.
Yeah.
I think so.
Ready to make a change?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's better, more reliable anchor point.
Speaking of making a
And
change, have you given any thought to how you're going to pick a bow this year, or what parameters you got in mind, or anything like that? I know we're probably a little ahead of the game here because new stuff hasn't come out yet, but you're always scheming and shit. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, things have evolved now where I can have multiple bows. So that's a pretty sweet setup if you ever get to that point, because you can kind of, it's what you do too. You like have different tools for different applications. So the question, it would change a little bit if I had one bow to do it all, or I end up kind of in a 3-bow system now, which is the same as you. I end up with a short bow, a compact bow that I would likely hunt most things with. A longer bow that I want to shoot tack and stuff with, because I want to be as competitive as I can. I want to shoot as good as I can at those events. And that's typically the bow that I would take hunting as well if I was going into an environment where I'd have to maybe potentially shoot a further arrow.
Sure.
And then a target bow, because target stuff has really, I think it's really helped my archery, and it's really a fun thing to do in the off season. So it keeps me shooting more often. I really have fun shooting a target bow, and yeah.
I think we're going to see every major brand come out with a new target bow this year.
That'd be really cool.
I do think we will.
Yeah.
Well, we've already seen some, right? Because we got that Elite Exalt, which they technically have a target bow, but they've been making the same longer target bow for a while. It wouldn't shock me if they changed that. Hoyt hasn't changed their target bows in 2 years. That's like, I'll be shocked if they don't change them.
It's gotta happen, yeah.
It's got to happen. Matthews following suit, I'd be willing to bet they replaced the TRX 34 and 40 with a title, the 34 and 40. We've already gotten the PSE Dominator Duo X. So PSE's got new target bows. Who am I missing here?
Which my buddy Joel now has a Dominator Duo X.
Yeah.
All set up.
Couldn't help himself.
Couldn't help himself.
And
I love having Joel around because he's a great dude, but his specs are so close that I can always grab his bow and shoot it. So without having to go through the trouble of setting my own bow up, I can grab Joe's bow and be like, oh, that's what this feels like.
How's this sucker work? Oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah. And I do like the idea of a shoot through riser. I mean,
you know what? I bet you Bowtech doesn't change.
Their target bow?
I bet you they don't.
Why do you say that?
Well, they spent a lot of time, effort, energy, and money into that design originally, right? And it has all the features of their other bows, right? So unless they come up with like a new feature to justifiably change it, they've traditionally been okay riding the target bow for 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 years.
Yeah.
And they didn't, other than Page, they haven't really put any money back that direction. So it wouldn't shock me if they just, rode the coattails of that another year, which it's a good design.
Yeah. And now I've gotten to complete the full circle evolution of like shooting all the brands, which is something I wasn't doing on purpose, but like 2 years ago, I realized I could potentially, like, I just have to shoot a couple other brands and I could say I shot them all.
Yeah, it sounds like you need a prime.
Yeah. That's the only one I haven't shot.
Have you had a PSE? Yeah, you have Super X.
Super X, yeah.
Yeah, so you had a PSE. So what else?
I've had familiar.
You've had an Elite.
Yeah.
You've had
all the majors here.
Man, you're
Matthews.
Practically a dirty little slut, aren't you? Look at you just running around the whole village.
Yeah. So I've shot them all. So that it's allowed me to like learn about all the different setups and feels like it gets my opinion more well versed. And all of those bows have pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're picking out a bow and it's a major brand, like you're not going to get a shitty piece of equipment. They're all great and capable of shooting really well, but they're all different in their own right. So
yeah, every once in a while a manufacturer may lay an egg, but it's rare anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was more common 10 years ago that you'd be like, oh, that bow's just a stinker. I think they just have too much time, effort, and energy in design and develop these things anymore to really put a crappy bow out in the market.
Yeah.
But every once in a while you get one where you go, yeah, they probably shouldn't have made that, or they should have done this different. But yeah, anymore you can almost bank on, if you're buying a good quality bow, you're getting a good bow, period. Just make sure it's the specs that you like and the handle feels comfortable to you and you're comfortable with the draw force curve. Although I still kind of go back and forth on draw force curve. I mean, you shoot it for a month and it feels normal.
You will adapt to it.
You'll adapt to it.
Yeah.
So none of it all feels that hard. Other than there's been one or two that were just so brutal. It's like, I don't know how you'd ever get used to this. But in general, yeah, you'll just get used to it. So it's not that super important. It's not super critical, I don't think.
Yeah, what do you think? We're maybe 6 weeks out from the rollout of new bows?
Well, Bears at the end of this month. It's on the 30th. I've got them here.
Yeah.
I haven't opened them and looked at them yet.
Yeah.
But I'll be doing those tomorrow, I think is my plan. I'm still finalizing what all I'm measuring and checking this year and how to do it right. But we're mid-November from what I've been told, I think across the board on the major brands. PSCs are ordered. I know what they are, and so do a lot of dealers. I think the dealers have the information. They're just not allowed to disclose it. Elite's coming here pretty quick. I got to check with my rep on that. He said he was lining that up, and I haven't heard from him. And I haven't heard from Prime, but they may just not want me to because my videos were pretty brutal last year. Who knows? You never know. And I want to say Bowtech was supposed to be around the same time. Consequently, I should probably call and check in on a couple of these, which I've got a whole complicated mess of stuff going on around that time that's going to make that whole situation stressful for me. Because I'm leaving early November to go to Texas, and then that section of that trip's getting extended before and extended after. That's going to probably make me be gone for at least 7 days, and all these bows come out in mid-November.
Right.
Like I'm going to be gone like 7-ish days around when I would normally be trying to knock all that stuff out. So that's going to get a bit hectic. I'm going to hopefully try to get them to send them to me, at least half of them before I go, so I can have it done and have them in the edit bay and get them edited. But yeah, hindsight, I didn't even think about that when I was scheduling this stuff. But now it's got to happen. There's a pretty substantial decision-making trip I need to make on future-based things that has to get done right around there because I got to make some commitments if I'm going to do it or not.
Yeah.
So, which all things I can't talk about yet. But if it goes the way I think it's gonna, I need to have that decided by then. So
yeah,
fun stuff. But yeah, lots of travel for old Joshy Poo.
Well, long-winded way back to you asked how I was going to decide which bow I wanted to shoot.
Right.
And
I don't want to say you didn't answer that.
The simple answer is whatever bow that I think I can shoot the best. Which sounds kind of silly, but I really like having a good grip on a bow is important.
Sure.
Something that feels good, or at least something that you can put on that feels good.
I put you on the spot, and you weren't ready to answer this, didn't I? You're all Tim's construction service at your service.
I wasn't thinking about it.
You're still in the remodeling mind.
Something that I can like the grip on. And then features are really freaking important too. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what they all come out with. I'm open-minded to whatever I could shoot the best. Honestly, that's kind of a generic answer, but it's true. Is Matthews going to change the grip on their bow this year? Do you think?
If I was a gambling man, I would say no.
Yeah.
If I was a gambling man,
yeah,
I would put my money on no. They won't.
Yeah.
So there's been a couple of things with a Matthews over time that never made any sense to me. It's their grip and the position of their grip.
Mm-hmm.
It's never made any sense to me, but it's the way they've always been designed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, hey, if they like it, they like it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why it's probably the most common bow to have an aftermarket grip exist for.
Yeah. I mean,
like there's a ton of aftermarket grips for a Matthews.
I don't know anyone that's like a hunter that I look up to or admire that keeps the stock grip on a Matthews.
Nope.
That includes like people that you see on the internet and people that you don't, like locals and shit like that. Nobody keeps the stock grip on a Matthews.
You would sure think a company like that would look at that and go, maybe we need our grip to be different. But no, they don't.
I don't know why.
Go, nope. This is what I like, and this is what we're using, and that's that.
Yeah.
And there's probably some logic somewhere behind why. And come to think of it, if I ever get that head engineer in front of me again, I'd be like, why do you make it this way? Like, explain to me why this is a better grip.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
But he might not ever want to talk to me again because I was blatant. Like we left that room and Evan was like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, what? I was just being honest with him. You want me to lie to him?
Yeah.
Oh, so
gotta be honest, man.
You gotta be honest.
Can't pander to all those.
That's literally me. Well, no, it's just like you can see the look on his face. It was so funny. I was like, I want to say, why the hell do you make it like that or something like that? Yeah, I wasn't. I don't own kid gloves, man. What do you want me to do?
No,
it didn't make any sense.
And it kind of sucks because, like, particularly like when I'm evaluating bows side by side as stock bows, I have to consider Matthews as that's their stock grip option.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they get whacked every time for that same reason. Not that it's not the best bow or capable of being the best bow in somebody's hands, but if you line them all up, stock, four bows, 5 bows side by side, you can't say, oh, well, yeah, I can change this. It's like the bow they ship to you.
Right.
So it wouldn't be fair to be like, oh, let me slap some side plates on there and then test it. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like
weird.
when you're weighing it out, which, like I said, I'm trying to reevaluate how I'm going to test bows this year. And I want to mark them down for that, but then you want to go over to the column over here and say, but there's 50 different options of things you can put on there instead of this.
Yeah.
Where you can't, let's say you've got a Bowtech Carbon 1. Well, there's no options.
Right.
Right? That's it. This is what you get. right? Let's say you got an Elite. That's your choice.
Yeah.
So if you don't like that grip, even though that grip's awesome, let's say you don't like it, you're screwed. So at least there's a massive variety of that, but I would think that should speak volumes to the manufacturer of the Matthews product that there are so many aftermarket grips for our bow. Maybe people don't like our grip.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's a big market.
Yeah.
We sell a ton of Total Peeps and B-Reels, like a ton of them. Like it seems like I'm constantly reordering them, and it's more than I thought we would ever sell.
Yeah. And part of the reason I'm stewing on this, because I've been milling over in my head if I wanted to do like a bow of the year type video. Like in my opinion, what is the bow of the year? And it's got me thinking about all the different bows. And then if I have to evaluate a Matthews based on how it shipped, that's the grip that they ship on it.
Yep.
So it's almost like a self-inflicted wound. I don't know. I guess maybe they figure because, which is true. A lot of people will say like Matthews wins a lot of 4-foot battles. Maybe the grip's something to do with that. Like
isn't
people
that Brandon's saying?
And it's probably true.
I think that's B-Max saying.
Most people, if they shoot all the stock bows into foam 4 feet in front of them, a lot of them do like a Matthews.
I think he says something like how do you say? He says it's Matthews wins a lot of 10-foot tournaments.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Which they do. Feels awesome right out of the shop.
And some of that is there's probably a little bias for a lot of people going into the shop towards a Matthews because they're hands down doing the best job with their marketing.
Yep.
Like it's not even really close. So a lot of people are predisposed to want to like a Matthews. But yeah, that bow of the year thing's really got me stewing. Is like, who would I give the bow of the year award to? And not to get into it too much, but Matthews would 100% be a front runner for that. But there's the but if, but there's a but if on the grip, and then there's a but if on what happened with some of the limbs too. And it's just it's just interesting to have a product like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's that tough of a decision.
Yeah.
Personally.
For you.
For most people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that tough. But
yeah, I think you can make arguments for other bows that are right there.
You could.
Yeah. Now, if that award was solely given out to the bow that sold the most, I mean, I'm sure that would win it.
I wouldn't go off of that though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I wouldn't go off of that. I mean, just the movie that gets seen the most isn't the best movie made.
Probably part of the reason, and maybe I'm just wrong here. Part of the reason that I probably don't weight the Matthews as innovative as you do is because of the weight. I know it's very impressive that they got the weight down, and I think that when you look at the design and all the cuts and the machining, like it's very impressive that they got that weight down. But at the end of the day, people still throw the weight back on it.
Yeah, you just put it where you want instead of where you had to, and you would end up with a slightly lighter bow to begin with.
It gives you more flexibility.
It gives you more flexibility, and you don't have to put as much weight on it, because if you're going to try to balance out a 4.5-pound bow in comparison with a 3.9-pound bow to give it to the same feel, your 3.9-pound bow is still going to weigh less after you weigh it down. So you're just not going to put stabilizers on your 4.5-pound bow?
No, you're still going to put it on there.
And so like let's say average 4.5-pound bow, guy's got a 15-inch front bar with 3 ounces on it, and then he's got a 10-inch side bar with 6 ounces on it, right? Mm-hmm. So you added 9 ounces to that. Are you going to add 8 more ounces to your stabilizers on a 3.9-pound bow? No.
Unlikely.
No, so you're still going to end up with a lighter bow, Timmy.
Yeah, and if your bow's a net result of 6 ounces lighter, so is your iPhone 6 ounces.
Oh, heck, you can carry 2 phones now.
So, yeah. It's unique. It's different. I just don't think I weight it as being... I think bows are in a sweet spot. Like, I would rather see design innovation versus weight innovation, I guess, from a personal perspective.
Design innovation?
Yeah.
You're telling me that bow isn't, like, innovatively designed?
No, I agree it is. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's not. What I'm saying is I would rather see design innovation versus weight innovation. If I were to look into like 2025 bows, what's the thing that would impress me? Design innovation. Like if somebody came out with a 2-pound bow, would that be?
I don't think you're going to make it lighter.
No, but let's not say that. If they came out with, let's say theoretically, if they came out with a 2-pound bow, is that impressive?
That's design innovation, would it not be? Because I don't know how the hell you're making it 2 pounds. I mean, the limbs, the pocket,
I
the cam,
know, but
weigh
what
2
I'm saying
pounds.
is that impressive though? If
Sure.
like let's say
If you could do it, sure.
At what point would it not be good?
Weight?
Yeah.
Honestly, you'd have to put so much weight on a 2-pound bow. Like so much. Like you would.
Because there's a point of diminishing returns, right?
Yeah,
like,
you'd put 1.5 pounds of weight on it where you wanted it.
Yeah.
And maybe it would shoot incredible. I don't know. That might be phenomenal. You can't build it, but let's say you could. That might end up being phenomenal. I have a hard time believing it could be because you'd have to get rid of so much stuff to make it even function. I think it would feel like crap when you shot it. But the impressive thing when you're talking about, what did you say? Ingenuitive?
I said design innovation versus
design
weight.
innovation. So,
and obviously there's some middle ground to that because a lot of weight is design.
Well, but part of design innovation is being able to reduce weight whilst not increasing noise and vibration.
Yeah.
Right? And did they do that? Yeah. Bow's not louder. Bow doesn't vibrate more.
I agree.
That's innovation.
I agree. There's a lot of reasons that. I mean, when you stick all the bows side by side, that bow just looks different, and I think that's rad.
It is, 100%. And we need that.
Yeah, we need people pushing the envelope.
They got to push the envelope because these things aren't going to go faster.
Yeah,
like they're to a threshold, in my opinion, and I would love somebody smarter than me to explain to me how they're going to go faster. Because I don't know how. I don't get it. I don't know how you do it. I don't understand how you do it. I know what efficiencies are. Like it can't look like it looks.
Right. That's what that's how I feel too.
Not even remotely close to how it looks to be able to increase the velocity that you're going to get an arrow to leave a bow at. So what other options do we have? I'm not all that convinced that arrows can be made much lighter than they are because they're on the precipice. Every brand seems to be really focused on making lighter arrows. Can't imagine why. But so if you can't make the arrow lighter and you can't make the bow go faster, what can you do?
Put a third wheel on there somewhere. I don't know.
Well, if you can figure out how to store more load in the limb without making it draw heavier, right? That's mechanical advantage, pulley-ish type systems. Sure, that would work. I would think if you can get the kinks out of it and make it work without it making a racket to function. But outside of that, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I would like to think we have an incredibly, beautifully sufficient and efficient product today, for the most part.
Yeah.
What we're shooting today versus what I started with is like, oh my God, it's like being on a unicycle versus a freaking crotch rocket.
Mm-hmm.
They're so different.
I've drawn some of those old bows back too, and
oh God,
they feel terrible.
You had to be really, really good to shoot decent.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't just pick it up and shoot it. These things practically shoot themselves in comparison. So, I mean, if you get weight down, if you get tunability down, like ease of tuning, which I think within 3 years across the board, we're going to see that on everybody. Like you won't be able to get away with having a crude tuning bow.
I think we're going to see integration.
Yeah, which we're already seeing a lot of.
And I hope, but I also think that companies will move into some type of universal integration. Maybe not, because maybe it's a cockfight kind of thing where they just, this is my part and this is how it's going to be. But it would be cool to see universal integration. I mean, we see that on rifles, other things. So, integration, tunability. That's a trend.
Yep.
It's a trend that only one company hopped on a while ago, and it seems like everyone's catching up now. And then, I don't know what else we're going to see.
I think we're going to see bow companies go away.
You think we're going to see other companies disappear?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
100%. I'm thinking within the next 10 years, we see at least 3 or 4 of them go away.
You think it's just going to get swallowed up?
Yeah, I do. I think if you can't figure out how to innovate your product greater, right? Mm-hmm. Your market's going to shrink. Now, if you took the average not big bow company and took away 20% of their market, 30% of their market, what happens to them? They die. Can't live on it. So my theory is that we're going to see 2 or 3 of them go away in the next decade.
Yeah, and a lot of times that happens when a bigger company will just swallow up other companies too. They'll buy them.
Yeah, which to me is the same as them going away.
Yeah.
That's just them going away. And with the growth that Matthews had this year, if they can maintain it into next year, it's coming from somewhere. So we hit COVID, right? And hit the most amount of archers we've ever seen in our life, right? And the biggest boost ever, right? And it's been in decline since then. And if Matthews sold so many more bows than they ever have, including COVID, those bows are coming from somebody else's pocket. Those are Hoyt customers or Elite customers or Bowtech customers or PSE customers or Athens customers because they went away. Somewhere. They're coming from somewhere. Prime customers, whatever. You name it. They're coming from somewhere. They're not just, that many more people decide to buy a bow this year.
Trading from one to the...
They're trading from brand, right? So that's somebody's pocketbook somewhere. And I have my own theories or druthers of where those are coming from. But it's probably not something I should say publicly.
Yeah.
Because I'll probably get massacred for it.
Well, don't get us canceled. I'm particularly...
I didn't think they canceled anymore. I thought they grew out of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Toughen up. Buttercup.
Cancel culture is definitely disappearing some. I'm really excited for Hoyt. I think Hoyt has a bone to pick this year. They kind of got overshadowed. I shouldn't say kind of. They very much got overshadowed by the Matthews launch last year. And they did a lot.
They did.
They did a lot. They made a great product and a great bow on a really solid platform that they already had. And it just kind of got overshadowed by the marketing hype and the buzz of Matthews. And Hoyt's obviously spent some money on marketing. Signed John. Maybe we see a different looking Hoyt this year. I don't know. I'm personally excited for what they do. Yeah.
Well, if there's somebody that's got the budget to put some money into engineering and design to make these things legitimately different, they've got a good budget. I mean, there's only a couple of brands that really have a big budget. Really. Everybody else is just trying to whittle their way through it. But I'd love to see it. I love Hoyt. I think they're a great company. I love dealing with people over there. They're really reliable, stand behind their product, just a lot of good stuff out of them. Can't say enough good about them. And that's now anymore, I would say that's the number 2 for sure. Like Bowtech I think has shrunk personally.
I think so too.
I think that's part of where that volume came from. Mm-hmm. If I had to guess, but who knows?
Yeah.
It's hard saying.
Well, I would be curious from our audience what they think for their bold predictions for 2025, what we're going to see from bows, bow trends, and bow companies. Because, I'm just curious what they're thinking. And there's always insights that we don't know about. And one insight I can share with you is fire's out.
It is.
As a bonus, if you're still here, as a bonus lawnmower review, I have a lawnmower review.
Oh, yeah. How'd that work out for you? I meant to ask.
So it was crazy. I was sitting in the parking lot and I was thinking about getting a lawnmower, and I asked Josh, I was like, hey, Josh, do you have an extra lawnmower? And Josh was like, of course I have an extra lawnmower. I got probably 6 of them.
Nah,
I got one of everything
3
back here. And or 2 of everything. But anyway, you had a dual lawnmower and you said I needed batteries, which was true. I didn't get a chance to run 2 big batteries in it, but it worked fine. I was actually surprised how many of my friends I talked to when I asked them what kind of lawnmower I should buy. A lot of them were like, go electric. Just go electric. And I was surprised to hear that because I thought most of my friends would be like, use gas, Use gas. You got to have gas. Yeah.
There's a reason. They don't wear out.
Yeah.
You don't have to keep fuel around.
Yeah.
If you accidentally forget to leave it all winter, it doesn't die in the spring when you try to start it.
Yeah, no oil, right?
There's no oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an electric mower. They're simple. They're basic. They work. Worst thing you'll have to do is buy new batteries for it.
Yeah. So anyway, I got to try that lawnmower you borrowed me for a little bit, and then one of my marketplace hits came back through, and this guy wanted to sell me his Ryobi. That was pretty new. So I just went and bought it. And electric lawnmowers are surprisingly good if the battery can sustain your job.
Yeah, you buy a bigger one, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because I started off with a smaller one, and
Yeah.
it can be difficult. If you have a bunch of batteries, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
they do a good job. I've had Egos forever, and I've got an Ego chainsaw, I've got an Ego hedger, I've got an Ego leaf blower, and it's damn near every bit as strong as my gas. I mean, the chainsaw, it's not a Still or a Husky, but it's still incredibly powerful. Like I had a little DeWalt chainsaw, and it was amazing how much stronger that Ego was. Crazy. You get a good sized battery, it's amazing what they can do.
Yeah. So I was surprised just how efficient the electric lawnmower was, and works well.
Nice.
So anyway, that's what we got for you today.
Bonus time.
A little bonus lawnmower review.
Tim's Construction Service at your service.
At your service, baby. We'll catch you back for the next one.
Yeah.